With Tesla lifting all EV stocks today, optimism is high on Nio's earnings, which is scheduled to be released after the bell today. Yes guys, today is the big day. Nio's going to be reporting their Q3 earnings results. And guys, this video is a thank you for smashing that like button on my previous video. You guys got like 500 likes in the first hour. Absolutely amazing. Thank you. So this is the video promised. So what we're going to cover today is 4 main topics, but there's a lot to discuss. You want to stick around for this whole video. First off, we're going to discuss what is the EPS and revenue expectations from analysts. This is always important because analysts can sway the stock. Secondly, what can we expect with deliveries? We're going to spend a little bit of time discussing that because deliveries are important with EVs. Thirdly, what is the most important metric to watch? I'm going to share my insight on that. And then finally, I'm going to discuss some other key things that you need to pay attention to during this earnings call. But anyways, guys, we're going to get right into it. I know a lot of you watching are not subscribed, so hit that subscribe button down below, join the community here, and let's get talking some Nio stock. So first off, what is the EPS and revenue expectations from analysts? Now I'm going to be clear, I don't make my investment decisions based on what analysts have to say. That's a very poor way of investing. You typically will end up losing money. However, I use what they say to my advantage. Sometimes analysts downgrade stocks, and I think that's a great company with great opportunities, so I buy, get cheaper prices. Likewise, analysts upgrade stocks as well and moves prices higher, and that's just the reality of the situation. At the end of the day, these analysts are making short-term price predictions, and that's going to influence the stock because a lot of people watch them, a lot of people trust them, a lot of people make decisions based on what they have to say. So whether they're right or wrong, whether you like them or not, you should always be paying close attention to what analysts have to say about your stocks. For Nio, analysts are expecting their EPS to come in at negative 1.18 Chinese yuan, which is equivalent to around negative 18 cents USD. We can see the range analysts are expecting here is pretty broad, but they all agree that Nio is going to report losses again this quarter. What they also show us here is that their outlook for Q4 is expecting to pull in even less losses. So that's a positive sign for Nio to keep note of, because if this is true and they confirm it on the call, that's a bullish signal. Now in terms of revenue estimated, analysts are expecting 4.4 billion Chinese yuan, which is equivalent to around 670 million US dollars. If Nio is able to hit or exceed this, it would not only mark a significant growth year over year for the business, but it would also mark a record quarter for the company with their revenue, because last year for Q3, they only hit around $260 million or so in revenue. So these are going to be the top of mind kind of headlines that everyone's going to read. You want to see that losses come in less than 18 cents per share US dollars, and their revenue comes in above 670 million US dollars. Now, while EPS and revenue is top of mind, like I said, everyone's going to see those headlines. The big thing with EVs is their delivery numbers. So the question now comes up, what can we expect with deliveries from Nio? Well, here's the thing. Nio, along with other EV companies, report their numbers on a monthly basis, so we pretty much know what to expect here. Nio delivered a total of 12,206 vehicles in July, August, September, which is Q3, which may seem like a small amount compared to some bigger automakers, but look at this. Last year in Q3, Nio delivered 4,800 vehicles, so this would be a significant bump up for the company and would actually be a record quarter for them as well. I know that some bears absolutely love comparing these numbers quarter over quarter to see how that's improved, but that's a flawed metric. You should be always comparing these things year over year, especially when it comes to vehicles, because it's very seasonal. There are certain seasons in the year that people spend more money on cars. That's just a fact. It doesn't matter if it's an EV company or not. People just spend more money in Q4, for example, versus Q1. This means that Nio is currently in their strongest quarter because they're in November, Q4. So it'd be great to see some updates on how deliveries are doing so far here in November, if they're actually on track to hitting their goals for the end of the year, and if Q4 can actually be another record-breaking quarter for the company. I have a feeling it probably will be. I can't stress enough how important deliveries are for these businesses, so you always want to be watching this. And guys, if you're not aware, like I said, Nio reports these numbers every single month. So you want to mark your calendar. You want to always see that they're on track and they're exceeding expectations here, because this sort of news, these sort of announcements always has an effect on the stock price, and you want to make sure that your investments with your hard-earned money is actually doing what you're expecting. Okay, moving on. Next up is number 3. What is the most important metric to watch? So I think that the metric that investors will be watching above all else, above EPS, revenue, guidance, and even their deliveries will be their margins. Nio's had a very tough time with their margins. You can see here that for the most part, it's pretty much been flat. And the last quarter, they did eke out a positive gross margin of 8.42%, which was actually the first positive quarter ever for them after many, many quarters of negative double and triple digits. For any business, Nio included, margins need to be positive for them to actually make money. If they don't have positive margins, they're just not going to be able to make money, because that's kind of the core fundamental for a business. If you're losing money on every single vehicle that you produce, how could you ever expect to realize a profit? So this is something I think investors will be watching very closely on this earnings call. And you can see here with their net income that this is what happens when you just keep posting negative margins quarter after quarter. The losses pile up, and in Nio's cases, this amounts to billions of dollars lost for the company over the years. Investors are generally pretty forgiving when it comes to these companies when they're losing a ton of cash, even though it is technically investors' capital that's being lost, because there is the other side of the coin, which is growth. As long as growth is strong, as long as growth is still there, investors will forgive. However, if growth sees any sort of hiccup, things slow down a bit, you can bet that investors' attention will come back to these losses, and that's going to be top of mind, which could put a lot of selling pressure on the stock. So yes, the most important metric I think most people will be watching is their gross margins. You want to see them post at least an 8.5% margin. Ideally, double digits would be even better, because that will signify that they're not only positive, but they're growing it now quarter over quarter. This will be big, and guys, I'm telling you, this is something that could definitely move the stock on its own. Now, outside of these fundamental metrics, there are some other key things to watch here. Firstly, we want to see any news on dilution. So Nio has a history of raising capital and diluting shareholders because they've been in situations before where they needed cash and they just had to do that. Most recently, this summer, they actually diluted more shares, raised more capital, and that has helped them strengthen their balance sheet a bit. Now, I'm not sure if Nio will actually announce something like this on their earnings call, because if they post a really strong earnings, this would just kind of dampen that, and they probably wouldn't want to do that to the stock. So it's unlikely that we hear that on today's earnings, but I think that this will be something that we'll see very soon. All the metrics kind of make sense here for them to dilute some shares. The stock has moved up massively. They're in a business where they're losing tons of cash, and the best way to raise that cash right now is at shareholders' expense, unfortunately, by diluting shares. Now, while they may not explicitly say they're diluting this earnings call, you want to hear and listen for things like, oh, we're looking to expand, we're looking to raise some capital here for this new project, this new venture. That'll kind of hint to you that they're looking to raise more money, and guess what? Dilution is probably around the corner. But hey, this isn't a bad thing in the grand scheme of things, guys. I know dilution is seen as a negative thing, and theoretically, technically, it is, because there's more shares out there now, supply, demand, But if you're a long-term investor, what would you rather have? Would you rather have them kind of devalue your shares a little bit right now, or would you have the company face possible bankruptcy if things get tough? I think the answer is pretty clear. I think every business should take advantage of these sort of situations. When the stock price has moved up massively, dilute some shares, raise some cash. Even our beloved Tesla has done that recently. Now, the other things to focus on is battery as a service and a possible new 150 kilowatt hour battery. Nio actually just announced a 100 kilowatt hour battery, so there's a very low chance they announce a 150 kilowatt hour battery now. So I wouldn't really expect it, but what you do want to hear is them sort of confirming that they're working on an even bigger battery, some better technology. Maybe they drop a hint that it's 150 kilowatt hour, but I don't think that they're actually going to announce that it's going to be released. I think they're just going to announce, if anything, that they're working on something. This will be really good because it'll help, put the rumors at ease, first of all. And second of all, it'll tell investors, hey, this business is continuing to innovate. They're continuing to push forward. And even though they just announced, 100 kilowatt hour, they're looking for something even better, even bigger for consumers. And that's a positive sign for any growing business. Battery as a service is another big one because, in my opinion, this will be one of the main profit drivers in the future for Nio. Right now, it's a fairly new service, but it has potential to be a big part of their business if implemented correctly. So specifically with battery as a service, what I want to hear is, how is this rollout going? How many customers have adopted this? How are customers finding this? Are they positive? Are they negative experiences? How is this affecting the actual financials of the business? Are you making a ton of money on it? Is this look like a profitable venture for another massive segment for the business later on? There's a lot of questions that I want them to answer around battery as a service. High level, this looks like a great product. High level, this looks like an amazing opportunity for Nio. But we need confirmation that it's actually working and their execution plan is helping them move forward with this. Now, apart from this, you also want to hear some obvious stuff, right? You want to hear whether they're working on some new cars. So far, their focus has been SUVs. Maybe they look at new segments now. Maybe they look at new markets to enter. You want to hear kind of expansion, and you want to hear new models in the works. Maybe they announce a refresh to one of their models. I think that's unlikely because their cars are fairly new already. But hey, you never know. It's a new business. Things change quick, and that's a possibility. Also on this, you want to look for things like their production costs. So if you didn't know, Nio actually does not make their cars. It's outsourced to another company called JAC Motors. And because of that, Nio has had a very tough time pulling in those positive gross margins. Now with things kind of ramping up quite a bit, it is helping them reach those positive levels. But what I'd like to see is kind of a plan in place here where they show investors what their kind of long-term outlook is with this, how they plan to reduce costs, and how that'll ultimately help Nio become a very profitable business in the future. Ideally, every investor investing in this stock will want to hear their profitability path. So I think if Nio announces that and they can really sell it to investors, that'll be a big catalyst for the stock. This will also kind of help us understand how they plan to compete with Tesla, because Tesla is in China. We all know that. And there's rumors that the Model Y is going to see a significant price reduction, which could actually undercut Nio's prices, which will add a lot of pressure to Nio with their sales. So if Nio has a plan in place, this is the time to let investors know so we can put our minds at ease and we can actually see how they plan to compete with another giant in this industry in China. But guys, above all else, just remember, keep yourself grounded, look at Nio's chart, and remind yourself, this stock has been on a wild bull run. The stock has had an incredible run here, more than doubling in value in a month and up much, much more than that in the year. The stock has quite literally made millionaires, but it's all built up to this earnings report that we're about to get here today. You can see that the part that I've circled on this graph, well, that's the 50 moving average on the daily chart, which would kind of be the downside support if Nio was to report anything negative. This $30 level is definitely something you want to watch closely, because if selling does pick up and that snowball of fear and selling kind of mounts to something much bigger, this is where I would expect Nio stock to kind of level off and find some more buyers. This is probably some of the most exciting and nervous time for Nio investors. I get it, I've been there before, and if you have a significant amount of cash in Nio stock, it's definitely going to be an earnings report you want to pay close attention to, and ideally you want to listen to that conference call as well. However, if you don't have time for that, that's okay. I will be covering it tomorrow. I'll take the time tonight to listen to that conference call, and I will make a video on that for you guys. So if you appreciate that, smash that like button down below. Just remember, optimism is up here for Nio, expectations is up here for Nio, and they need to deliver on this. They're priced to perfection. You've probably heard that before in many stocks, which means that investors are expecting a lot. Pretty much perfection. So if they deliver anything less than perfection, if they miss, if they have some negative news to announce, if things aren't going according to plan, guys, make sure that you're prepared for that, because it is a possibility. Anything's possible in the stock market, and we could see a ton of selling in Nio stock. As much as I want to be optimistic on this, I'm a shareholder in Nio. Of course, I want to see the stock move higher. I got to be realistic, and I got to see that the stock has moved up quite a bit, and anything negative could see some bumps in the road. That being said, the long-term outlook is still looking good for Nio. This earnings, regardless of whether we get a beat or a miss, should only confirm their long-term plans and their long-term success. So either way, just remember, if the stock goes up, stock goes down, have a long-term mindset and have that plan in place, which is what I've been preaching on this channel for the last little while. I've said this many times, whether the stock goes up or down, I don't plan to sell my shares, and who knows, maybe if we go low enough, I may consider buying more Nio stock. We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, I just have my popcorn ready. I'm just watching this earnings report and see how things play out. Guys, anyways, thank you so much for watching. Remember to smash a like for this video as well and subscribe if you're brand new here. But either way, don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.